Yay. Yay, alright, yeah. Yeah, and I was going to include Calamity Jane about the adult force. And like the corporate ladder and the Statue of Liberty and the corporate agenda, and the thing about the calam and the ladder is kind of like a thing about the something I'm kind of like really wondering what the situation is for real, but in any case, yeah, so like I was thinking about that because I've been making statements and it seemed to be, I mean, so for real, what it is, like a little bit of humor, but the Flag Day, June 14th, 1992, I mean, it's ultimately getting to, I mean, the book, The Psychic Warrior, America's Foremost Psychic Spy, and the cover of the CIA's top secret Stargate program, and Abraham Lincoln Night Vision. Yeah, the Flag Day thing, huh? Saturday morning SAT thing, huh? A VSAT, oh yeah, a VSAT thing, yeah, sure. And, yeah, and some idea of like what time zone is, and SAT being 2400, the highest possible score. But anyway, yeah. So like the thing of it is that I had mentioned Calamity Jane because it seemed to be like the deal about in my mind, Geneva, Switzerland going to circuit, and what prepaid postage being of like a Calamity Jane thing. Predominantly, the Pony Express would even suggest the thought of the idea of like, the mail, the prepaid postage, thing about Calamity Jane, yet it gets to the horseshoe and the power, and, what the horseshoe is to the thing of, like the ohms in electronic power, predominantly 8 ohms, there's the thing about the figure 8, and the 8 ohms is a standard for like most cabinet speakers, PA speakers, okay? And the thing of it is that, prepaid postage in my mind about Calamity Jane and what that is to Wells Fargo, or the stagecoach, or the thing about even Wyatt Earp and John Wayne, and my thing about during the gold rush is ultimately getting to a Sox and Goldman issue about New York and how hedge funds and international monetary funding and certain factors of the New York Stock Exchange involving certain types of transaction that would only probably more than likely represent the thought of whether or not the projected estimates is only what gold normally is projected as. Goes up and down. It doesn't remain the same. It's like a standard of it's obviously a thought of planning for gold. Okay, the thing about Calamity Jane. Now it's kind of like I have T-Mobile like right now, and it's like a bunch of pink stuff, okay? And, my thought about, the idea of, the pin K, the pink, or, some idea of like somewhere why a U.S. patent is not a copyright, or what the pin is to, the thought of like whether or not it's only intellectual in the way of what having fair use of only what legal tenure is to, for all dead, or is it just really the thing about the Adonai thing about Christianity, Adonai, to like a debt, and it's like a debit card, okay? I mean, it's like, it's almost like the forbearance in a student loan totally changes the perception of what, might not be really, but really at this point, how could it not be the idea of a student loan combined with like a Pell Grant, or maybe the GI Bill being something of, I don't know if I would really call it governance or a presidential debate based upon introducing a House bill into legislation potentially passing a law, or what litigation might only maybe suggest why de facto is not necessarily litigation, or what limitations only present maybe if that's the only thought of, what writs of habeas corpus would only mean between like Wyatt Earp, and John Wayne and True Grit in the way of like what pastel is, and what Hopsing, the chef. I mean, the deal about in my mind of like Diners Club and that symbolic representation of the circle with the vertical line in the center, presenting a 90-degree. It seemed to be like okay, like I'm in Pearland, Texas, okay, which is Brazoria. The thing about Brazoria is like 90, okay. And, my thing about, hey, it's, like hey, you got all the right stuff. It's kind of like the 90-degree right angle. What that is to, like, civil rights and like Geneva, Switzerland, or the Bein venue, and how true it is if it's the Bein venue all the time, or identified as that, as not necessarily other than what's provided as available information on television. Yet, if it's like a duration of intellectual, or whether it's even considered charter districted or zoned, or an intellectual duration only for my thought of a Stargate program involving Abraham Lincoln night vision in the way of a shadow government, and the thing about whether or not if that's going to represent some idea of space exploration in NASA, or the thing about the constitutional law being the black book, and state statutes annotated also being black, and even the thought of like a world history that presents the pastel green as in my mind as a world class of world history being the pastel green. My thought about the difference between an 18-hole golf course or like 2 9-hole golf courses. Obviously, as far as like if it's like the idea of like a portrait of a landscape, that is a 90-degree. What a superimposium would maybe not normally be perceived as, as far as like visuals, yet it is a visual, but the normal perception of a landscape is that it's not a 90 of a portrait, yet it is. But the thing with this is that a superimposium, it's not the normal perception of like photography, or effects of like transition and motion picture, or video of special effects. Just a 90 degree of a picture, like an 8.5 by 11, vertical, or like horizontal. What that is to Abraham Lincoln and Lincoln Continental. The thing about Continental is, the thing about the international financial management, a continental thing, being, the national thing about international financial management. The thing with this is that ultimately it gets to the thought that prepaid postage, in a way of whether or not it's litigation de facto, it's just like a writs of habeas corpus based upon, the way it is just administered and distributed based upon, where a person really lives, and generations of like what that has meant, whether it's considered ascending or descending, or generation in a way of, what progression really means in what direction. If it's ultimately getting to, hey, you were baptized during the gold rush, yeah, and you were on a stagecoach, kind of like, thing about it, and the thing about the VSAT, and some idea of like J. Edgar Hoover being amphibious, and what really where the VSAT is like above it all, and really the stagecoach is really that, and what the VSAT is to like some amphibious thing about J. Edgar Hoover, or even Hop saying that way, the chef, and although Hop saying is like the thought of my thought of like Oriental, or even orientation in a way. Oriental, like Japanese being like 71 in Pearland, the thing in my mind, predominantly, seemingly, whether there seems a difference between international communications, or what would be presented, as available information that would even suggest geographics in the way of local area networks presenting maybe more so of color code. And I'm not real sure about LULAC, or Latin Urban League, although, Latin is the thought of like just information. Me studying money, predominantly the U.S. dollar, all about, something in my mind actually originating from, a heart god, or like Robert, or the heartbeat of America, ultimately getting to the ESCO and the zip code, and certain factors about the alphanumerics of 78, the exact opposite of like 87. Ultimately, 87 being the truth, or what absentee would be to like, the candy bar, Baby Ruth, or, the thought of like baby being 30, or MAP, or Ruth being like a book in, the King James Version Bible, or, the absentee thing about the truth, or, the baby 30 in a Bible thing, and ultimately getting to the map, and geographics, and VSAT, and all the color code about the, blacked out on a map, or, think about the going beyond, what is predominantly, normally, I thought of like what family law might represent. If it all ultimately originated from, whether or not if it's just a creation of alphanumerics and placed as a color code, or the thought of like, you know, I mean, it's almost like Ed McMahon, so like, enter now and enter the early bird for a chance to win an extra $1 million as a grand prize winner of the American Family Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes. And I mean, so like, now, I mean, really back then, during all that, and I never even thought of it as like, the blackbird or pagan idolatry involving the Ten Commandments, or the Ten Commandments representing like binary numbers, or region 1 and region 0. Region 1 being like, North America and Canada, and region 0 being like, as far as the operator wants to go. I mean, if it's like only language or, computer programming, but the HTTP colon that way. In any case, so like I was thinking about that because of, thinking about Hopsing, okay, and the stagecoach, and ultimately getting to the Pony Express and Calamity Jane, and the Salmon, the ladder, okay. The Statue of Liberty, okay, is kind of a little bit of, not really humor, but I mean, it's like the corporate ladder, in a way of like what the Statue of Liberty means, and presidential, executive, and legislative as compared to what family law, business law, and corporate law, or what Washington, D.C. is, like the alphanumeric's 130, and the D.C. being like a dimensional clause or direct circuitry or degreed circuit, or, the daring, I mean, if it just has to be daring Christ, well, religion is the reality, okay, and the end God we trust. The thing of it is that really, if it ultimately gets to the thought of going beyond, what the categorization of money only means, well then, some idea, well then there's really where the degree's at, and what value it means and produces, something more than maybe just, free time, or a designated source of, achieving the value as a constant, providing, and how it affects others and used that way. So, so like I was thinking about that because of Calamity Jane is ultimately getting to the Pony Express and prepaid postage, and what the horse is, the horsepower, and ultimately even, GMAC and a promissory note that way, and what OnStar is to Calamity Jane. It seems to be like really ultimately the Delta Force getting to the electronic power, of the biggest mouth of the river being the Delta Force. And, what the corporate ladder is to the Statue of Liberty as, like, the Delta Force representing, Plymouth Rock, or, the Native American Indian, in a way of what behavior is of that, and what that has meant to, like, a principle of, like, a reservation, or even, the reserve, reverse, and Pentagon and 92 thing, or calculus, and like a drummer, or the thing about the, what behavior presented as a controlled environment to what civil rights is, in a way, or what, the thought of a telepathic TP, and ultimately getting to, the alphanumerics of like TBB and 36, or Chase, or Oil, and much more. But likewise, in addition, telepathic being 99, okay, and like, the thought of like a RCA, and the thing about the toilet, okay, the grandeur tenor thing about the V thing, maneuver and manure thing, huh? And the 22nd letter V, maneuver and manure, or the RCA 22, the FDIC 22, or like the Japanese thing about the Japanese alphabet and the 22 letters, and it's ultimately getting to, I think it's only 2 structures. I mean, I was just glancing at it, and I didn't even think about, like, not one thing about the structure being in any kind of way, like 2 letters of the Japanese alphabet involving quantum, and a different by design E going beyond the calculus into quantum, and how, my thought about the absolute values going to algebra, and something about the 3 rules of nomial, binomial, and trinomial. But anyway, the absolute values, they go through all the way through calculus into quantum, and that algorithm issue, and the different by design, and where scientific notation is, something about it. But anyway, so like I was thinking about that because Calamity Jane, and I like the deal about the salmon, going upstream. A different approach to what really might only be the thought of the Calamity Jane, huh? And prepaid postage, the ladder, huh? It's kind of like I'm really wondering what a situation is about something pretty close, but yeah. But anyway, I kind of like looking at it and notice a little bit of a difference there, in kind of that way. But in any case, yeah, so like I was thinking about that because I was about like the availability of T-Mobile being the pink, and it's just like really seriously right now, it seemed to be the deal about salmon and the ladder going upstream and the clams. I mean, even how the clams got there. In any case, I mean, for us, seemed to be really the deal about the ladder. The Calamity, the Calamity Jane thing, huh? Or what the Delta Force is to, in a way of like what maybe a triangle might only represent. Maybe it's the one pronoun that cannot be used as a separate of the 4 types. And ultimately, you know, the triangle, some pi r squared factor being, you know, one triangle would be 2 triangles and a 6-point star again, okay? But the thing that I'm thinking about right now is something about the Calamity Jane away, prepaid postage, ultimately getting to Geneva, Switzerland, and the summit meetings in the Bein venue, and what civil rights is, to even, you know, the thought of like, you know, the thing about salmon is that predominantly the word pink is predominantly quite a bit about it, yet T-Mobile is like, I mean, thoroughly structured on the color pink. Yet, you know, normally the FDIC doesn't identify pink as some idea of like a patent pending, or some idea of like not making grade beyond, you know, any neighborhood. I mean, if even a degree in a bank, I mean, in a neighborhood, it just doesn't seem to be. I mean, the thing, you know, commercial venue of living quarters, and it seems to be like my focus is like, you know, hey, I think I really not only want it but need it, you know, get above it all and above the traffic with some like a real transportation about it. But yeah, and my thought about music video and audio production and, you know, concert touring, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, this is the year 2024, okay? And like I'm 59, right? Born 1964. The thing of this is like, and all this has like been going on, and then I'd refer to, you know, Highway 59 being like 140 Pearland, Texas, and Alphanumerics, Attenuation, Purple Heart, Holy Miracles, and I mean, it goes on and on. FBI psychology minus, you know, the 22 thing, which is like the V and 22nd letter, or my thought of the Japanese, seemingly the issue of like the symbolic representation of Diners Club, and the one of quantum, going beyond what seems to be like my situation right now of SSI, supplemental security, and you know, the thought of the EBT as compared to the Lone Star card and the SNAP food benefits. I mean, it seemed to be almost like the student loan, and I'm realizing something about, you know, quite a bit that was like going on, and maybe been really kind of, you know, not seeing or realizing something in the classroom about litigation, or, I mean, just turn the television on, just living in a neighborhood, or just, you know, where a person's from, and maybe not even realize a standard practice is, you know, not necessarily the miracle. Maybe some people might, you know, maybe think that isn't even involved, but, you know, the way I see it and everything that has really been happening, alphanumerics and linguistics has been a huge motivating thing that I had taken interest in, and got to where that I really, you know, being impressed is really, you know, not really the deal, because, I mean, like with any profession or any practice, I mean, the practice makes perfect is, you know, always be on the hype. The practice makes perfect is, I mean, virtually almost guaranteed to be beyond the hype, okay? At any level of profession, or sports, or, you know, interests, academics, I mean, really everything really that way. And the thing with this is that Calamity Jane, it seemed to be the deal about the prepaid postage during going through a circuit. Ultimately, you know, what I've been referring to as the Stargate program. Excuse me. And it's ultimately getting, you know, to what the corporate agenda and some idea of the corporate ladder, and the Statue of Liberty, what that really is to the color of pink, and it seems to be, you know, like what's available now. It seems to be the big deal right now with me, through years of like, you know, seemingly T-Mobile's like one of the, if not only the real thought about availability. Ultimately, you know, it seemed to be realizing that it's almost like every mobile phone distribution and sales is like narrowed it down, and I'm just now realizing something. I mean, is it like really some idea of the thought of the Statue of Liberty, or, you know, the pink thing about salmon? Pink salmon seems to be some idea of what I see as the salmon swimming upstream, and the ladder, as compared to the corporate ladder, or the thought of like the delta force in the way of the triangle, the biggest mouth of the Mississippi. And in electronics, you know, obviously the triangles to delta, or the Oldsmobile Delta 88, or what that in schematics is as the triangle, being the delta. And all that, you know, Lee Iacocca stuff beyond, you know, different lines of the beachfront, and, yeah, the thing about it. But anyway, I wanted to clear that because I'm actually trying to think a little bit more about the Calamity Jane thing, because it seemed to be like the civil rights of prepaid postage, and, you know, what was really going on. And the thing about the memory, it seemed to be like the idea of like a the one and only latitude in global positioning systems of the equator being at a 90. And how true it is about time zones. I mean, if it serves as a coordinates of like an equator as a coordinates, and what that is in military time. And I'm not sure if the equator, when that really happens, if that's like a generalized, if it's considered a tolerance in a time zone, with a 90 degree of an equator being ultimately an operator, and the degree about the exponential quotients of powers of multiplication as compared to E equal mc squared. Or, you know, the 90-degree right angle seems to be the thing about the quadrants and globalization and international financial management. I mean, even the architecture platform, embedding encryption, what that is to like programming that way of even Austin Powers, Blue Bonnet Paralegal. And it seemed to be like all that's like connectivity. And the way I think about alphanumerics and linguistics, and, you know, all the practical application, integration, compatibility, and the analytical stuff about it. I mean, I totally look at things completely not normally. But all that has become so very much in many years of it that it's the norm for me anyway. And I've gone quite a bit on my memory. But anyway, I wanted to clear that. It's already going on like 21 minutes at like 51 seconds right now. So I want, if I think anything more about the Calamity, the Calamity, and the prepaid postage and what that is to the 90 degree, what seems to be like the rectangle of the hood ornament, you know, the Lincoln Continental, Abraham Lincoln thing, even my mind of global positioning systems, and, you know, the quadrants of the rectangle on the tennis court, depending on whether if 2 or 4 people are going to play, which is actually a principle of binary numbers and sequencing, characterization, and sets of 4 in computer programming and language, okay? But anyway, yeah, so I'm going to think about, I just wanted to include the Calamity Jane thing about the salmon and the pink and the T-Mobile, or what the absentee deal is about the voting, or the Ecclesiastes thing about the hops and the baptism from the gold rush and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, so like I'm gonna take a break, okay? Talk to you later.